Got it.
Good afternoon, Clark Atlanta University family, and welcome to the CAU Faculty and Staff Fall 2020 Reopening Town Hall. This is Sam Burston, Vice President for Institutional Advancement. We have a wealth of information to share with you today, so let's get our town hall started. Please welcome our moderator for today's town hall, CAU's own Director of News and Media Relations, Jolene Butts Freeman. Welcome back, Jolene.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that awesome introduction, sir. Good afternoon, Panther Nation. Welcome to the CAU Faculty and Staff Fall 2020 Status Update Town Hall via Zoom. Now, this is our 6th town hall and the 2nd Faculty and Staff Town Hall. Before we begin, I would like to ask our university chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Tanya Miles, to open our discussion with prayer. Dr. Miles.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mrs. Butts Freeman.
Our university chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Tanya Miles, to open our discussion with prayer. Dr. Miles.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mrs. Butts Freeman. It seems that there's a delay. During our fall convocation, last September, Dr. Powell and the choir led us in the song Shosholoza, which comes from South Africa. And the song that was sung by the miners, the Ndebele and the Zulu miners, to encourage their work forward. It means to go forward together, united and encouraged and empowered. 32 years ago, Atlanta University and Clark College decided to Shosholoza and go forward together. Today, we are called to do the same thing. And so as we begin our town hall this afternoon, I invite you to pray this prayer with me, that we might pray together as we go forward together. Now, you'll be muted, but I assure you that the collective of our voices will be heard by the one who makes all things possible. And so I invite you to follow along as we pray. Gracious and loving God, as we gather this afternoon to hear about your plans for Clark Atlanta University, a part of your vineyard that we hold dear, we pause to acknowledge you as the creator of all things, the one through whom all things work together for good, and the one from whom we are able to draw strength. We acknowledge our concerns, our doubts, our fears, our trepidations, and our anxiety, as we also acknowledge our hopes and dreams for this new academic year. And we give thanks that we can cast them all upon you. We give thanks for our president and the leadership team for their tirelessness and discerning on our behalf for our safety and well-being, that we might continue to live out our passion as we serve this place that we love. Gracious God, you have been faithful to us since our beginning in 1865. And you have reminded us through every decade how our faith can see us through even the most challenging of times. Today, we call upon you for strength to sustain us, your presence to guide us, and your love to bind us. May you fill these moments and open both our hearts and our minds that we might see you at work and willingly join in on this journey. Have your way, precious Lord, have your way. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Miles, for that amazing prayer. Thank you so much. Clark Atlanta University faculty and staff, we have a distinct group of CAU leaders to join us this afternoon. Our panelists are Dr. George T. French Jr., CAU's esteemed president, Dr. Dorcas D. Bowles, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Mr. Eli Phillips, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Deborah C. Hoyt, Chief People Officer, Mr. Shelton Anderson, Associate Vice President for Facilities and Project Management Planning, Ms. Susan Gibson, University Registrar, Dr. Mary A. Hooper, Associate Vice President, Online Learning and Continuing Education, Dr. Omar Torres, Dean of Student Services and Campus Life, Chief Deborah Williams, she's our Chief of Police, and last but not least, if I did not say, I want to make sure I say, Dr. Dorcas D. Bowles, our Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. Did I mention you, Dr. Bowles? I wanted to make sure I did that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
All right. So for our listeners and viewers who have joined this town hall via Zoom, please note that the format for this evening's call will be a 2-hour discussion between our president, provost, and the panelists. The discussions will cover a wide range of topics related to COVID-19 and the fall reopening here at Clark Atlanta University. And additionally, all the questions were pre-submitted by you, our faculty and staff. Now, at this time, I would like to welcome our provost, Provost Dorcas Bowles, to bring greetings.
Thank you, Jolene. Welcome faculty and staff to this town hall meeting. Let me begin by thanking each of you for completing and/or enrolling in the T-TEC certification course. 99% of faculty are either certified or enrolled in the CAU online teaching certification. 70% of all full-time and part-time faculty have already completed all of the requirements for Canvas 101 and T-TEC and are fully certified to teach online at Clark Atlanta University. 22% of our faculty are currently enrolled and will complete their certification prior to the start of the fall 2020 academic year. I want you to give yourselves a round of applause for a job well done. Please know that I am proud to be your provost. We have been working hard to develop plans that will ensure all members of the CAU community are safe. All of the Atlanta University Center institutions have agreed upon an abbreviated academic schedule that each institution will follow. As well, each institution determined which students based on classification will return to campus, live in residence halls, and take classes on campus, and which students will remain home and take courses online. The purpose of this town hall meeting is to provide you with an update of the plans for Clark Atlanta University for fall 2020 opening. You received a statement from me early this morning regarding the opening of school at CAU. You also received a statement from the Atlanta University Center Consortium explaining the opening of all institutions who are part of the Atlanta University Center Consortium. This town hall meeting will focus on responding to the many issues you will need to know for the 2020 opening of school at Clark Atlanta University, and will answer any questions you have been posing. President French will now bring greetings and remarks. President French. I'm muted.
President French, you can unmute yourself.
Got it. Thank you.
There you
Thank
are.
you. Thank you, Madam Provost. You look absolutely beautiful in times of pandemic and telework. And I thank you for those opening comments. Colleagues, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And as I reflected upon coming onto the call today, I was reminded of the words of one of the Atlanta University Center graduates, Martin Luther King Jr. And you recall that Martin Luther King Jr. said that the ultimate measure of a man, and I would parenthetically say, and of a woman, is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where they stand in times of challenge and controversy. Colleagues, we are in the midst of a challenge, and I'm speaking to over 432 of my colleagues this afternoon. We are in the midst of a challenge. COVID-19 is something that our country nor the world has seen actually since 1918. The influenza pandemic of 1918 took the lives of 50 million people and changed the world forever. And interestingly enough, for these researchers on the call, you would know that influenza and COVID-19, those are the closest symptomatic diseases and viruses that we've had since 1918. So now we find ourselves in the midst of a challenge. And Clark Atlanta University, we've stood strong. We've stood firm. And I want you to know that you should be proud of your administration, of your faculty, of your staff, of the engagement of all throughout the academy, as we have literally gone from transformed in March from an on-ground university to online in a number of weeks. Students had to make drastic challenges. Students had to return home, some of whom did not have the resources, and we provided resources for them to get home, for them to buy food, for them to have computers to go online. Clark Atlanta University, we came through. Our faculty came through. Faculty members, some of whom had been teaching online in the past, and some of whom had never done taught online nor remote instruction. You all were willing to make that change. And we heard you, we listened to you. And I'm going to say, Madam Provost, we listened to faculty. And I will say, though, we will listen even more in the future on the front end of planning. And I say that unequivocally and unapologetically that I'm relatively new to the university, but one of the things I see is that we have a world-class faculty, and we will engage them more in the future, beginning already on the front end of our decisions versus the back end. Because these faculty have much to offer. They are the brain trust of the academy. I'm appreciative for Dr. Kurt Young and his interactions with our crisis communications team, with our crisis management team, and his ability to reach out to me to say, listen, Mr. President, we're doing well, but I need you to make sure that you hear the concerns of the faculty. That's what he did. This provost heard your concerns. We heard your concerns, and we understand what those concerns are. We've been meticulous, we've been deliberate, and we've allowed science and data to inform the decisions that you are listening and hearing to today, the decisions about how we reopen. And guys, listen, let's just talk as family, because that's what we are. All of our students are not going to be happy. They all want to return, 4,000 students, they all want to return to campus, and I get it. And who wouldn't want to within the AUC and at Clark Atlanta University? But the reality is, ceteris paribus, all things being equal, we could move in one direction. But we are educators, we are academicians, we are the intellectuals. We have to make informed decisions informed by data. And data indicates that we are spiking. We are not going down. We are spiking as a nation right now. So we have to make some hard and tough decisions. So I thank you for your support. I thank the crisis management team for your support in making recommendations. I thank you for collaborating with the AUC Center, with Spelman College, with Morehouse College, with Morehouse School of Medicine, for collaborating with the cutting edge science and life science corporations in America so that we could make the best decisions, for collaborating with, and Eli will talk about this more later, but collaborating with Dell and negotiating with Microsoft and Cisco, whatever it takes, we've been out there negotiating to make sure our students could be ready to enter the classroom. Now, at the same time, we have equal, if not more, making sure that we take care of our faculty and staff, many of whom are at risk due to age and pre-existing health conditions. And we are hearing you. And if you have those concerns, we are going to take those concerns in consideration. And we're not forcing anyone back into the classroom nor work. Listen, we have to make it work because we're all family. So whatever it takes, Madam Provost, to my team, let's make it work. Let's take care of my faculty. I'm going to take care of my staff. I'm going to take care of my students. It's a pandemic, but guess what? We are going to get through this together, Jolene.
Thank you so very much, President French, for those opening remarks. And you are absolutely right, sir. We are going to get through this together. Thank you so much. At this time, Provost Bowles, you'll present us with an update from Academic Affairs, followed by Susan Gibson, University Registrar, then Dr. Hooper on faculty development. Provost Bowles.
Okay, let me begin by giving you an update on academic affairs. CAU COVID-19 committees have worked hard to develop plans to reopen CAU that will provide safety to administrators, faculty, staff, and students. Our priority is safety for all of CAU constituents. Our ultimate goal is to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus at CAU and throughout Atlanta University Center institutions. We have taken and will continue to take appropriate measures to keep our campus safe. When you hear from each of the panelists, you will see that CAU's plans are designed to provide safety to all persons on the campus. It will, however, take collective and continuous efforts of all members of our community working together to make sure that we follow CDC guidelines and university policies. A detailed fall 2020 CAU reopening playbook will be available to each of you in the coming days. The abbreviated academic calendar will shorten the fall and spring semesters to avoid having students travel during Thanksgiving or Christmas breaks. And you were able to get a copy of that abbreviated calendar as a part of my communications this morning. Special plans for those for graduate students in the sciences who use labs have been developed, and COVID-19 standard operating procedures, what you scientists call SOP, will be online for faculty and graduate students who will need access to labs. In making decisions about which students would return to campus, we took into account CDC guidelines regarding social distancing for residential halls, classrooms, dining facilities, Henderson Student Center, and other student services. It was not an easy decision, but we determined that we would have the following groups live on campus. Freshmen and sophomores will live on campus. Recipients of scholarships for residential halls, student leaders who will serve as ambassadors and mentors to freshmen and sophomores. On-campus instruction, freshmen and sophomores will attend classes on campus in reconfigured classrooms based on CDC guidelines. This will include freshmen and sophomores living in residential halls and a few who will commute to campus. Juniors, seniors, and graduate students will live off campus and will take courses online. Juniors and seniors who live on campus serving as ambassadors and mentors will also take their courses online. Graduate students in the sciences who will take their courses online will be able to come to campus and use labs for their research on an assigned basis using Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday scheduling. We have bought synchronous and asynchronous technologies that have been bought so that they can accommodate students in the classroom and others who can join by Zoom. This will be explained in further detail by Dr. Hooper. Our on-campus environment will be different this fall, and it is important that we continue to work together to hold to vigorous academic standards and provide each student with an excellent academic experience. We can do this, and we can do this while making the campus healthy, safe, and well for the entire CAU community. That is our priority. This concludes my comments, and we will now hear from our registrar, Susan Gibson.
Good afternoon. The University Registrar, AUC Registrar's Council was charged with developing an abbreviated academic calendar to take us through this particular period. And this abbreviated calendar is as follows. We shortened the calendar from a 15-week calendar to a 13-week academic calendar for the university and for the AU Center. If you will notice on this calendar, we will begin our online classes on Wednesday, August 19th. Our regular classes, the on-campus classes, will begin on Thursday, August 20th. You see the drop-add periods. This calendar will be posted on the website, CAU website, for you to refer to it later. However, if you notice, Labor Day will be a work day, and for us to make sure that we are making the contact hours that we need. Our semester will end on November 20th, as you can see. For the spring, it will also be abbreviated. The semester will begin on Monday, February 1st. There will be no spring break, and we will move directly into our regular calendar to end up with our commencement activities at the end of the academic year in May, as always. Then, from the academic calendar, we had to develop a class schedule. The university developed days for us to return to campus and a method in order in which we are to return. From this semester, classes will be held Monday and Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. That means that any class that is on Monday, that next day for that class will be Tuesday. Section 1, Monday, Tuesday. Section 2, Thursday, Friday. So that's how that will work. When we shortened the term from a 15-week to a 13-week, we had to look at the contact hours associated with shortening that, and abbreviating, I should say, that academic calendar. So now the classes will meet 90 minutes in 90-minute segments. That is for those classes that are on campus, on ground, face-to-face. The online classes will be in fully online or partially online. So how does this work for us? For those online classes, on campus classes, this is how it will work for us. You see, on Monday and Tuesday, the classes will meet 8 to 9:30. You have those 90-minute increments, and that's the same thing for Thursday and Friday. This is how we will operate on that. The online classes, there will be no designated time frame in which they will operate. Online classes are just that, for the convenience of the students at a distance. Thank you. And next, we will move to Dr. Hooper, who will talk about our faculty development.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gibson. Listen, thank you for what you do in the registrar's office. I think going back, just a little clarification, we're saying that Wednesday, on the first slide, we had Monday, Wednesday. I think that was Monday, Tuesday, right? Wednesday is the sanitizing, and go back to the slide, Ms. Hooper.
Go back to the slide.
Right.
It's Monday, Tuesday.
Right, to go back before that one.
That should be Monday, Tuesday.
Right, it should be Monday, Tuesday. So it's Monday, Tuesday, because Wednesday is going to be the deep cleaning and sanitizing day. But listen, that's just a typo. Got it. I just didn't want my people confused. You did a great job. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. French.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gibson, and the scheduling work that you are doing is just incredible. CAU family, on June 1st of this year, I celebrated my second year as a member of this amazing family, and what a ride it's been. I have been so excited to meet you and work with you and engage with you. And during this time of crisis, I saw the best of the best. See, we have done so much training. I want to go back and take you back to the week of March 12th. And I want you to remember what that week was like. Because in a period of 1 week, including 2 weekends, 282 of the 294 full and part-time faculty engaged in some sort of training.
How many?
282 of 294 of our faculty. And this was March 12th to March 23rd. I mean,
Dr. Hooper, let me stop you. I was driving in Atlanta today, social distancing, and I saw a sign that reminded me of that week that you just described. It said, "What a year this week has been." Amen. That week was a year. You're right. And how many again?
282 of 294.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it wouldn't have happened without the faculty stepping up. And I have to give credit to the wonderful team in the CEDL, in the Office of Online Learning and Continuing Education. So you can see, we also had our deans and department chairs step up big time. Deans scheduled school-wide meetings so that they could all get on the same page. Department chairs brought us in to work just with their discipline-specific issues. It was an amazing ride. One of the things we have to really understand is we did remote learning March 23rd through the end of the term. And then we got serious. That was serious. I didn't mean to say that wasn't serious. I want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between remote learning and online learning. In remote learning, we were technology enhanced, all right. We had all kinds of interactions, but those interactions were implemented in response to a crisis that stopped us from doing what our original plan was, right? Most of us were working in class with our students face to face. And so our courses had been designed for in-person instruction. Remote learning caused us to change how we use that design. These courses were not intentionally and deliberately designed for online delivery, and we acknowledged that we sub-optimized. Faculty stepped up in a big way. They looked at what the learning outcomes were and retooled those final weeks of the semester to focus on what was essential for students to demonstrate their proficiency on the learning outcomes of the course. Summer school brought a new day. Somewhere around the middle of April, faculty who were slated to teach online this summer or teach in the summer got very, very busy intentionally and deliberately designing the summer courses for delivery online. Online learning by definition at CAU allows for 10% of the instructional interaction to be face-to-face, but we didn't do that this summer. We were 100% online. I would like you, if you know someone who taught online this summer, to congratulate them. Every faculty member who taught online this summer worked with their colleagues either in the TTEC process or with a peer review group and put their courses out for review to their colleagues against national standards. When we offer online, when our students pay tuition specifically for an online course, we enter into a different mode of accountability to our regulating bodies, SACS, and the National Council for our State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, SARA. So we had to make sure everyone was trained. As Dr. Bowles said, we are going to do online for many of our students in the fall. And even our on-campus students will have a synchronous, asynchronous experience. Imagine an HBCU or any institution where 99% of the faculty are certified as online teachers, online instructors. There aren't very many institutions around that can say that. It's a big deal. And that certification is based on the most rigorous, most recognized nationally and internationally standards for quality instruction. So the asynchronous, synchronous technology, because all of our faculty are trained in that sort of instructional design, they can craft their modules in a way that the students on some of the days are in those classrooms with us for our freshmen and sophomores, and the other students who don't have room in that classroom in a safe way will be in another room and on their devices so that they are able to fully engage and interact. It's an
Dr.
exciting
Hooper,
day. Yes, sir.
My faculty, 99%. Thank you. Best faculty.
It's awesome. Now, mind you, many of them are still working very, very, very hard.
Right.
If we look ahead at my next visual, this is a visual of information Dr. Bowles has already given. And so 77% of our faculty are already fully certified as a CAU online instructor. That's that TTEC and Canvas 101. In March, we were at 45%. It's a lot of work between March and July 1. We have 22% of our faculty that are right now, and hopefully they're not multitasking during this town hall, working away on Canvas 101 and on TTEC. In addition to this training, we're not stopping supporting our faculty. We're listening to faculty. As a matter of fact, our STEM faculty and some of our social science faculty that teach research methodologies, they said, Dr. Hooper, this Zoom whiteboard is kind of nice, but it's hard to model equations. So in partnership with our awesome colleagues in OITC, we looked into what would it take for us to equip our faculty for these digital drawing pads so that when they're on Zoom, they can actually model structures and equations and chemical things that, quite frankly, I probably need to learn about, but I don't know. They do. They've been coming to campus this week, 2 by 2, safety procedures first, getting trained, practicing, and demonstrating their proficiency in that integrated whiteboard of Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a very advanced Zoom skill, and our faculty have stepped up to do it. So we are ready. We are ready for academic quality and great experiences for our students and faculty in the fall. And our staff members have been there walking along the journey to support them. But let's talk a little bit about what fall will look like in terms of some of our traditions. One of the things that we do every year is have a big old opening institute. Well, for faculty, we're going to have a virtual opening institute on August 17th and August 18th. ladies and gentlemen, it will not be like our face-to-face opening institute, because we know that in a virtual environment, there's a limited amount of time that we can really stay fully engaged. So we'll have a general session. We'll hear from our president and our provost. We're going to do some celebrations and some recognitions. We didn't have a chance to do that in a closing institute in May, and there are things that need to be celebrated. We'll talk about some fall special events. Then we will have a series of rotating breakouts by departments. We have some more information that's above and beyond the instructional design of our certification. So there is always more learning. We have a digital reading platform embedded in Canvas, and we've never had the opportunity to formally engage people in exploring it. There are so many learner support and teaching support features of that digital reading platform called Red Shelf. So we're going to have some breakout sessions to make sure everybody knows how to use that with and teach their students how to use it as well. We're partnering with Dr. Clem, so make sure that our Center for Academic and Student Support and our library support, partnering with our AUC library folks to have some sessions about how to best access those resources to ensure that our students are able to be their best as learners. We are going to call on the one and only, the amazing Miss Gibson to clarify how in this online and blended learning and asynchronous, synchronous, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, how do we do those very, very important process of attendance, right? And other pieces related to our registrar's process. And we're going to call on our new general counsel, Jennifer Irvin, to do some support with us on some legal processes that we all need to be aware of. Those rotating breakout sessions by departments will be short sessions spread out, kind of like a conference. You go at designated times. But we're also going to use those 2 days to engage in the peer review of the online courses. We have to make sure that when our students pay tuition for an online course, even if it wasn't our first choice to do it that way, that those courses are value add and they are CAU ready, meaning they have been through the peer review against those standards for quality matters, quality online learning. I could not be happier to be where I am. And I am so grateful for the faculty and staff and administrators in this CAU family. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. Now, I think it's time to turn it over to Ms. Butts Freeman. Oh no, one more thing. It's like getting signized, right? But wait, there's more. We want to make sure everybody knows how to get support. Repetition is good sometimes, right? Our OITC colleagues have worked tirelessly with us to really help clarify the boundaries for who can help with what. So we want to reiterate, if you can't get access to something, you're locked out of something, contact the CAU service desk. Their number's on the screen and many of you have it saved in your phone, or send them an email, support@CAU. That's for access. Once you have access, that's where the online learning and the CETL team come in. And we have our number there. If you want help making some tweaks to your syllabus, creating or managing learning, accessing or using Zoom, or designing assessments in new and different ways, call us. We are here for you and grateful to do this work by your side.
Dr. Hooper, so just repeat the last part. You said, if you don't have access, then, and if you do have access, just repeat that one more time.
So if you're locked out, if you don't have access, OITC, they're your friends. They will help you get access. They can help you get directions for resetting passwords, making sure your Active Directory is set, and all of that. Access is OITC. Once you're in, come on over virtually to the 3rd floor of McPheeters Dennis. Call us, online learning, continuing education, the CETL. We will provide support once you have access.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to Provost Bowles, Ms. Susan Gibson, and Dr. Hooper. You've got me even more excited. I'm listening. I'm so proud to be a Clarkite and alum. I don't know what to do at this point. This is outstanding.
Are you, Jolie, Clarkite alum? I think you were cutting edge as the first female drum major in the history of the institution. Is that right?
Back in my heyday, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. And again, this is so exciting. And I'd like to congratulate our faculty and staff for, standing up and to the challenge and rising to the occasion. They're doing an outstanding job. And you all are doing an outstanding job. And I'm just proud to be a part of this team. So moving forward, that brings us to our questions and answers segment, the first one. So faculty and staff have pre-submitted their questions, and we will cover them again in 3 segments. So we'll start with question number 1. And this one will go to Dr. Hooper. How long does a faculty certification last? And when will it need to be renewed? Dr. Hooper.
That's a great question. While we are all lifelong learners, this TTEC certification, the CAU online teaching certification, is a one and done. So once you're certified, you're certified. It doesn't expire. However, as you develop additional new courses, before a fully online course goes out to students, it will have to be peer reviewed, and we have a process in place for that. I feel like I've left a very important group of our team members out. Through the support of our Title III funding and some institutional funds, we have identified some faculty learning community coordinators, your colleagues, your peers, and they will help facilitate these peer reviews. We're going to be working with deans and department chairs. Any course before it goes out as fully online does have to be peer reviewed, but you still are certified. Once you're certified, you're certified. Again, that peer review process is part of our compliance with the state authorization reciprocity agreement. You might hear us talk about SARA, things like that. We have to be a member of SARA to be authorized to teach students who are not currently in the state of Georgia. So when we're doing online for students who are in other states, we have to fall under that compliance of SARA. So you're certified for life. However, you will be peer reviewing any new courses you develop.
Okay. Our next question reads, once a faculty member has completed the certification, is it necessary to go through additional training? Dr. Hooper.
Okay. Certification is a baseline. It gets us to the starting point of with having capacity and demonstrating the proficiency for the instructional design. You know, we're all lifelong learners, and nothing is so good it can't be made better. So the OLSI and CETL teams are committed to providing training opportunities that will ensure that faculty are able to fully use each of our resources and learn new approaches as technology changes. And most importantly, in our partnership with our faculty learning community coordinators and outreach with our deans and department chairs, we want to use the voice of the faculty as more and more faculty are using Canvas at higher levels and are using these instructional resources that the institution has invested in. We want to hear from the faculty, what is the training that you need? So one of these What's Up Wednesdays that you're getting every week from me will include a link to a survey. Please take some time. I'm going to wait until after we get the school year started. I don't want to survey you to death, but we do need the voice of the faculty to know what's next in terms of our ongoing learning and training.
So our next question will go to President French and Provost Bowles. Should we go 100% online for the fall semester? How does the university plan to add value to justify tuition costs to parents in relation to our competitors? So President French, Provost Bowles.
Well, thank you, Jolene. So, of course, the communique that was disseminated today, not only from Clark Atlanta University, but from Spelman College and from Morehouse College, indicated that each school is reducing the density on campus for social distancing purpose. The scientific data informs that social distancing is effective. So if we have a mechanism whereby we can reduce the density, which in our case, we will bring freshmen and sophomores on campus, upperclassmen will be online, then we think that we can most effectively prevent the continued spread. So 100% online will be for freshmen and sophomores. So we don't anticipate an atmosphere where the entire student body is online. However, my colleague mentioned earlier, again, all things being equal. And we have to be agile in our approach, because if we continue, or if the spike even increases, we may very well find ourselves, as with every school in the United States and the world, going 100% online. But our contingency planning, Jolene, has made room for that. Our contingency leaders who, crisis management team from across the campus and across the AUC, we've made accommodations to where we, and I don't want to make this announcement too early, but we are making accommodations to make sure that all 4,000 of our students have access to go online should that be necessitated. Chief Operating Officer Eli, he'll talk about that more, so I'll leave that alone, but we're prepared in our contingency planning. Because why do we do contingency planning like that? Because we are Clark Atlanta University, and that's how we plan. So we will be ready if we have to go 100% online. Madam Provost.
Let me just say that the peer review process that Dr. Hooper described earlier is part of our quality assurance for value-added academic quality. Remember that our quality assurance process ensures that all online courses meet both national and internationally recognized standards for online learning. SACS tells us that if you have online courses, they must be equal in quality to your on-ground courses. So when we are reaccredited, we have to say that our online courses are equal in quality to our on-campus courses. So they have to be quality.
And thank you, Madam Provost. And Jolene, Department of Education, they did a study about 6 years ago. They commissioned a study, and they had the high-level researchers looking at methodologies of instruction and what is effective and use of resources. And the question that was basically posed was, what is the most effective form of instruction? Is it 100% on ground? Is it 100% online? And the empirical data indicated, which informed our strategic plan as a university, it indicated that it's a hybrid of the two, of on ground and online. So while it's a pandemic, this is a crisis, but we see the opportunity to take advantage of the data to say we need to move in that direction anyway as a university, toward more hybrid forms of methodologies, deliverance of instruction as between on ground and online. So we may have been pushed a little bit in the direction, but that's the direction that our strategic plan calls for anyway.
Excellent, excellent. Well, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Eli Phillips, he will now discuss our partnerships, followed by Chief People Officer, Mrs. Deborah Hoyt, and our Dean of Student Services, Dr. Omar Torres. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Jolene, and hello, colleagues, and good afternoon. Since this pandemic has not allowed me to meet many of you yet, I would like to again say how glad it has been to join the CAU family and Panther Nation. I've quickly learned in 4 months how wonderful CAU is, and the love and commitment people have for the university is unparalleled to any prior institution I've worked at. This is a fantastic institution, and again, I want to say how thankful I am that President French invited me to join his team. As we have done throughout the pandemic, the university has closely collaborated with Morehouse College, Spelman College, and Morehouse School of Medicine in the AUC response to COVID-19. Today, I would like to share with you how we and the other AUC schools will collectively respond to reopening campus. To begin with, we take science and data very seriously. And towards that end, we have actually engaged an outside life science and logistics company, Verily, to perform certain functions for us that I will describe. But Morehouse School of Medicine will also play a very pivotal role. They will conduct the COVID-19 baseline testing for all employees prior to returning to work. And you will hear momentarily from Ms. Deborah Hoyt exactly what that return to work plan will be. Also, they will perform the AUC COVID-19 response coordination, and each institution has been asked to appoint an individual to serve as a task force leader and some administrative support. I am pleased to say that Dean Omar Torres raised his hand and he has volunteered to be that lead on behalf of the university. Verily will provide the following services. They will actually do the baseline COVID-19 testing for all of our students prior to coming back to campus. They also will provide each student with an app, and eventually all employees will get an app that will communicate health and safety information and collect daily health information. In addition, Verily, which is also a technology logistics company, they will be giving us a daily dashboard reporting to MSM and the institutions on key metrics. They will oversee the periodic sample testing. We will not just do the testing upon reopening. Based upon the data, based upon the trends, based upon the science, we anticipate that throughout the academic year, particularly the fall, that students, faculty, and staff will also be sample tested. And Verily will also assume the responsibility of contact tracing, which is very important in the event we have cases of COVID-19 appear on AUC's campuses. Now, President French earlier mentioned computers to students. And I have the privilege of announcing that we intend to give all students totaling about 4,000 laptop computers for this fall. And students who are financially enrolled will receive those computers. A round of applause, please. And this is a part of the contingency planning, but also it's a part of the vision in which I have to say the university has, that we recognize that students need laptop computers and they need the technology acumen.
Eli.
Yes, sir.
Now, make sure I'm straight. Now, I've heard of a couple of schools that are giving those to first year students, but I've not heard of an institution that's giving them to all 4 cohorts, including graduate students. Have you?
I have not. I have not.
Okay,
and
I just want to make sure.
Googled that. And I think the names are going to be Clark Atlanta University.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we will go in the Guinness Book of Records, I'm sure of that.
Thank you, sir.
And I want to give a lot of credit to our Chief Financial Officer, Lance Thompson, and our Associate VP over OITC for all the hard negotiating they did. We spoke with 4 major equipment players of laptops in the world. And the deal we ended up in the partnership agreement we have with Dell is vastly superior to many. So hands off to CFO and to Mr. Cooper. And that concludes my comments, and I would like to pass it over to our Chief People Officer, Deborah Hoyt.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be with you by Zoom once again. I'm Deborah Hoyt. I'm the Chief People Officer for the university. I'm celebrating my 6th year with CAU, so I don't need much of an introduction to most of you. However, if you are new and you have come to the university in the last several months and we've not had a chance to meet, I have had a long background doing lots of other things before coming to CAU. I spent a good deal of my career, 30 years of it, doing, I call it corporate turnaround work from an HR platform in financial services, in telecommunications, in healthcare, and not worked in education, but I can tell you many of the things that I've learned in consulting and working in various capacities in other industries apply to what we're doing here at CAU. I know that we're not for profit, but this is a business and we have revenues and we have clients and we have customers and we have expenses. And I said in a forum not that long ago that when someone asks me what my title is, I say Chief People Officer. But if they ask me what my role is, I say, whatever it is Dr. French needs me to do, up to the highest level of skill that I have from all of my collective experiences over my career. And I can tell you the work that we have been doing in planning and responding to this pandemic has stretched everything that I have learned and know, because this is unlike anything that we have experienced before. In terms of partnerships, I work very closely with all of my colleagues on this call, not only daily, nightly, and weekends as well. There are no boundaries around our schedules. It's whatever that needs to be done that we come together to make that happen. I also work very closely with my counterparts across the AUC schools and planning what it is we are going to do with respect to reopening our campus. So I don't know if you can go to the next slide, whoever our host is, let me just kind of talk through what our plan is. This is what we are thinking and planning around in terms of workforce reentry. We will test all of the constituencies here in the AUC Center, staff, students, and faculty. We will also do daily temperature checks at CAU, and in just a little bit, you're going to hear our chief speak to how that's going to be done by a change in the way we have access to the campus. We will also have staggered schedules as we return to the campus. That is for the purpose of allowing us to do social distancing with the space that we already have without having people in close proximity to each other. In order for us to facilitate the temp checks, we are also going to have staggered work hours as you come back to campus. We have deliberately set schedules to allow a blackout day in the middle of the week so then we can have ongoing sanitation during the week and on the weekends. And you're going to hear more details about that from Mr. Anderson. So that is our plan around workforce reentry, and you'll get more details as we go through the town hall. As always, I invite people to send questions to me if you have questions behind the town hall or at any point in time, or any concerns related to what our plan is for the reentry. Dr. Torres, you want to comment?
No, this is fantastic, actually. But I'll go ahead and jump in and take this opportunity to, thank President French again for his diligence and leadership through this effort. I'm going to take an opportunity now to really talk about how we're going to particularly serve our, as Ms. Hoyt kind of put it, our primary clientele on campus, our students, the ones who we are often significantly mindful of and want to be careful about. So if I can work with our moderator behind the scenes and our voice of God to ensure that we get the next set of slides up so we can speak to the details accordingly. So as Mr. Phillips has shared a little while ago, while we're preparing for our partnerships, one aspect of that partnership is what we're going to do to support our students in terms of COVID-19 testing. So all our on-campus residents, those who will be residing in our residence halls, as well as our first and second year commuter students, will receive a test kit at least 14 days prior to the start of the fall 2020 semester. And the students will have 3 days to self-administer the test and return the test via postal mail to the nearest laboratory. The students, once the test itself has been returned via postal mail, the lab will receive the test, and once the test is examined and assessed, the results will be communicated back with the students via text, and the text will then have a link to a password-enabled portal that will allow them to have access to their results. Those results will also be shared with the university. And as Mr. Phillips obviously made the keynote, I will obviously have access to that information to help support and monitor our students with their health status while they're on campus. It's also critical for us to note that, again, while we have this one-time opportunity prior to the start of the fall 2020 semester, students will be randomly tested throughout the fall 2020 semester for COVID-19, because we recognize that there will be an ebb and flow to this process, and we want to make sure that we are protecting our valuable assets here on campus, and particularly really protecting the student experience here on campus. So at this point, I think this concludes our series of presentations. I now turn it over to Ms. Freeman, I assume for our next series of Q&As.
Thank you, Dean Torres. That's exactly right. We'll move into the next segment, our second segment for our Q&A. So our question reads, how will the university support if a student is diagnosed or tested positive for COVID-19? So Dean Torres, I think that's a great question for you, sir.
Thank you, Jolene. So let me make it very clear. Students living in the residence halls who are diagnosed with COVID-19 will be temporarily relocated to a campus designated quarantine space. The students will remain in this location and have limited contact with other people until 14 days after their last exposure. These students will receive support directly from the Office of Student Services and Campus Life. They'll also receive support from Dining Services and the Office of Information Technology and Communication to ensure the academic continuity during this period. Now, for our commuter students who may experience symptoms or are diagnosed with COVID-19, we're going to encourage them to remain at home. And
Torres.
Yes.
You said it succinctly, but plainly. What you just said was that we are making arrangements for a designated quarantine facility that will be sanitized, that will have monitors to classrooms so that their education continues, and that we will make sure that if their mama wants to know, are they eating? Yes, we are going to make sure they are fed from cafeteria and they're taken care of just like the general population. Is that correct?
Let me emphasize your point even more, President French.
Okay.
If your daughter was still in the Atlanta University Center and happened to be on the better part of the Atlanta University Center campus, she was here at Clark Atlanta University, and you had to call me and say, can you please check on Jasmine and please let me know how she's doing, because guess what? She got diagnosed with COVID-19. I would personally ensure that she is connected, because again, we just made the announcement. Our students are going to be equipped with the technology that they need so they can go ahead and continue with their academic pursuits. We have a phenomenal colleague and a phenomenal team with facilities management. Sean Anderson is going to have an opportunity to talk with our entire faculty and staff with regards to what the protocol is going to be in place to ensure the healthy sanitation and cleanliness of this entire environment. That includes the quarantine space.
Thank you.
Yes, the tribute again also is to our team over in auxiliary services and business services, particularly Ms. Cynthia Gomes and the team over in Sodexo. And they're going to continue to provide that support to make sure our students are fed.
Thank you, Dean Torres, and because we've made that those considerations as to the quarantine space, and the spaces that we will use will make sure that there's proper social distancing, and we're doing reorganization of those spaces to make sure that they have adequate distancing during quarantine. So thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you, sir. And again, my thanks personally to Shelton Anderson, to Cynthia Gomez, and then also Chief Williams for always ensuring and reminding us that the CDC guidance is there to help us, particularly guide us in this particular lens and decision-making. So thank you, President French. I want to make sure that we don't forget about our commuter students in this experience. So even our commuter students who may be experiencing symptoms or are diagnosed with COVID-19, we're going to encourage that population, if they are experiencing symptoms or they are positively diagnosed, to remain at home, to not come on campus, so that we can ensure they're not exposing their symptoms to others in our community. The commuter students should monitor their symptoms daily, notify their personal health care provider if symptoms worsen. again, just like our students who are going to be in the quarantine space, the team over in the Office of Student Services Campus Life and OITC will continue to follow up and check in with them. We're going to make sure that they stay connected to the academic continuity. And then part of our outreach and support is going to be that we're going to ensure that when they are ready to come back to campus, we have a protocol in place so that we can review their medical information, ensure that they're healthy, ensure that they received a negative diagnosis, and that they're set to continue with the academic plan when they're ready to come back on campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So Dean Torres.
Yes, sir.
Another of our panelists may very well cover this, but as far as continuity of operations and just being succinct in messaging, what I've heard so far is that the students who will be resident students, they will receive from a professional life sciences company the test kit that will have the tests that they must take before returning to campus. We receive a copy of those results. Also, there's a process whereby students who are even commuter will have an electronic system whereby they will be surveyed every day, a list of questions. They will receive in their student kit also thermometers, which are reusable. So, and also we've ordered 125 of those temperature guns.
Yes.
We'll have 4 stations before anyone comes on campus to make sure we test anyone coming on campus for temperatures. Is that what?
I don't know how comfortable Chief Williams would be with you using the term thermometer.
I know.
But I'll use the right term, infrared thermometer.
There you go.
And make sure that that's appropriately used to scan. And I appreciate you, President French, for bringing up that context. Because those are some of the tools we're going to use with the support of public safety, with the support of our student health officials, to ensure that we, again, part of the move-in process for our resident students, we're going to use that technology to ensure the safety, to ensure a safe move-in. And then obviously we're going to incorporate that, particularly for our faculty and staff, and that'll be touched on later on during this town hall.
Thank you, Dr. Torres.
Absolutely.
Our next question will go to Mr. Phillips. And it reads, hi, my question is whether CAU is going to set a threshold to determine if and when we need to shut the campus down. For example, how many students and or employees with a confirmed diagnosis will it take to make the determination that we just need to shut the campus down in the fall?
Thank you, Jolene.
Yes, sir.
These are both two very big questions to which we are still seeking answers. As you know, what our nation is facing is uncharted territory. There's no precedent or empirical data to guide with any degree of certainty early decisions as it relates to how many cases among our community is too many. CAU, along with Morehouse and Spelman, have posed these questions to Morehouse School of Medicine and the Life Sciences and Logistics Company we intend to partner with, Verily. We anticipate they will provide answers to these questions once they have sufficient data to make an assessment. However, what I can say with certainty is that your administration is laser focused on staying informed and making thoughtful and quick decisions as it relates to the welfare of our people and the viability of the university. And if President French would allow me, if I go back to March of this year when the pandemic really first hit, under his leadership and with some concern by others, he made the decision that we were going to essentially suspend the inauguration, cancel all related convocation activities, and ultimately we were going to shut down the campus. And that took a bold move. And let me tell you that my time in knowing him, he will not hesitate if the data and the science indicates that the trend is becoming adverse to pull the trigger on that decision. But right now we think that it's a little too early, but Morehouse School of Medicine and this life science and logistics company, they really are top drawer. And we believe they will be on top of this, not only on behalf of CAU, but Spelman, Morehouse, and Morehouse School of Medicine as well.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Our next question will go to Ms. Deborah Hoyt. Will faculty and staff be required to test for the virus prior to returning to the campus? And can faculty and staff submit a negative test result from an outside testing agency?
The answer to that question is absolutely yes. All of our staff, students, and faculty will test before they return to campus. And I have a little graphic here to talk you through how testing is going to work on the staff and faculty side. You already heard Dean Torres speak about how testing is going to be handled on the student side, but if there are other questions, you can always clarify those with him. As Eli mentioned, we are in partnership with Morehouse School of Medicine. We have 2 vendor partners. The vendor partner that's going to work with testing on the staff side is called Color. So what's going to happen, and I've already done this, I've already sent over to Morehouse School of Medicine all the names and the email addresses for all of our staff and faculty, to include temporary people and contract people if you're being paid by the university. What you're going to get in your CAU email is a notification telling you that you have been invited to schedule your COVID test. You're going to respond to that email and you're going to select a scheduled date and time, and you'll get a confirmation of that date and time. That's going to come to your CAU email. So if you look on your computer, if it's coming to your smart device in your hand, please watch for that. It's not going to come from CAU. It's going to come from color.com. And you've heard Eli speak about Color. They are a third-party vendor that we are working with to do the testing on our behalf. They do lots of this kind of work for employers and for researchers and for hospitals and other healthcare organizations. And they can give us fast push through on a lot of volume. So when you get your confirmation, you're going to go directly to Morehouse School of Medicine's campus. Please allow 15 minutes before your appointment time. When you get to the campus, you're going to need some things. So please, these instructions are here in abbreviated form for you to not show up on your appointment date and not have what you need. You must wear face coverings when you go for your test, because that's part of our safety guidelines as we reopen our campus. You must have your CAU ID, because we're not random testing people who just show up on the campus. We're only going to test our own employees, and these tests cost money. This is a significant investment on behalf of our campuses to do this work, but we think is worth the risk, worth helping us manage the risk. You will also need confirmation of your appointment time. The public safety officer on Morehouse School of Medicine's campus will stop and do your screening. At that time, they will also do a temp check before you are cleared to go into the testing area. The testing area is going to be set up outside, which we think is a safer place for us to be, not have to worry about inside ventilation. There will be medical assistants, clinicians at the tent to take your temp. The temp should take no more than 10 minutes for you to, the test should take more than 10 minutes for you to do that. So you don't have to have a long time waiting in line and all the exposure. That's why we're doing the designated time. Once you have taken the test, please anticipate getting in your email confirmation of your test results. That will come again from Color, and it should be turned around to you within 72 hours. So you will know whether or not you test positive or negative. This information is private with you, but we have a dashboard of data that we're managing at the university level, because now we need to be in touch with any employee who has tested positive to instruct them that they're not going to be part of this wave returning to campus, right? So all of this testing is going to take place between July 6th and July 24th, because we are preparing for the reopening of the campus in August.
So thank you, Ms. Hoyt, and that was succinct. So go back to the slide. So we are saying that in order, we have a love and a protective attitude towards our students, but also toward faculty and staff. Therefore, all faculty and staff must be tested before they return. They'll receive an email notification letting them know what their day is so that we don't have a critical mass showing up at one time.
That's correct.
Right? They will go to Morehouse School of Medicine 15 minutes prior to their appointment time. Short test, 10 minutes, right?
That's correct.
Must have a mask on when they come and their CAU ID.
Correct.
And will receive the test results within 72 hours. That was it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you are negative, you are cleared and you will be prepared to return to campus on that date. Now, a bit later in the presentation, our chief is going to speak about what's going to happen then if you are cleared and you come to campus and you're ready to report to work, because there are some additional safeguards that we will be taking when you come to campus.
Will all employees, Ms. Hoyt, have to have masks when they return to campus?
Yes, all employees will have to have masks when they return to campus. And Shelton is probably going to speak about all of the preparation that we have made with our facilities as you enter the campus. And that's going to be very informative, especially as we speak about what's going to happen with the ongoing sanitation of public spaces.
So that thank you. And that was our faculty and staff going to have to pay for that testing themselves?
When you come to campus on your day one, and I think we speak to this later on in our town hall, each employee, each staff person, each faculty person will be given a beginning sanitation kit on your first day returning to campus. So if you happen to have forgotten your mask, you're going to get one the day that you come. Those will be waiting in your workspace. Now, we're not going to continue to replace those, but it is going to be a requirement that when you're on the campus and you're in a public space, that you're going to wear the mask to protect yourself and protect others.
Okay.
You know, we've had mixed reviews coming from our healthcare community. If you watch the news, and I'm sure everybody's been keeping track of what's going on with the virus and what our healthcare professionals are saying, because there's new information that comes out every single day, and sometimes that's changing information. At first, what we heard from the healthcare professionals is that you're wearing a mask protected other people from you if you were infectious, that it did not protect you.
That's right.
Now I've heard of recently a doctor say that it does both, that it protects you from spreading it, but it also protects you from getting it.
Right.
So we're going to be very firm about having people wear face coverings so then we can protect the entire community. So
Ms. Hoyt, I want to be clear. The university, though, is making the investment on that test. When they go to Morehouse School of Medicine, our faculty and staff, they don't have to pay for that test. The university is going to bear the cost.
That's exactly right. Your testing to re-enter the campus is 100% paid by the university.
Okay.
And you'll get your starter kit, your sanitation starter kit on your first day. All the guidelines will be reviewed with you. We will be pushing out additional communication to our entire community after this town hall, but having the opportunity to talk through these things with you, respond to specific questions that you've submitted as part of the town hall is important. We wish that we could do this face to face, but we're not going to do that because one of our safeguards is that we're not going to have large public gatherings.
Exactly.
We're not going to have conference meetings, even with our own internal people, and we're not going to invite visitors. We're going to start this with the same kind of safeguards that we have had during our teleworking period. We will meet by Zoom.
Thank you, Ms. Hoyt.
Ms. Hoyt, we're going to ask you one other question. Reads, will the staggered scheduling proposed for return to the university be applicable once the fall semester begins, or will the return to office be full-time?
That's a good question.
Yes, ma'am.
We will continue to follow the AB schedules and the staggered work hours as we reopen our campus. As Eli has spoken when we had the question about how many cases do we have to have before we get to the point where we make a decision to close the campus. We don't have profound and complete information today, but the structure that we have put in place to oversee the university through this crisis, under the Crisis Management Steering Committee and the various subgroups, we work daily and nightly and weekends on trying to build informed, intelligent, fact-based plans to protect the university. So what I can say to you today is that we're going to start with these abbreviated schedules and these staggered work hours. We're going to let that run. We're going to monitor that. We're going to watch that. We will know, and I'm getting a nod from Eli because he's the chair of the Crisis Management Steering Committee. And I talk to Eli multiple times a day, all day, all evening long, on exactly what approach we should take with these kinds of things. So what I can say to you today is that we will be very studied about when we need to make changes, not only to our scheduling, but with any of the plans that we are overviewing with you today.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoyt. Our next question, actually, this one is for you as well. And this is really important. If a faculty or staff member has a pre-existing condition or conditions and/or is concerned with their health, should that individual be concerned with losing their job if they are unable to return to campus in the fall?
We fully appreciate that there might be members of our community that would have situations or concerns about returning to the campus in the fall. We get that. We actually had given a lot of thought much earlier in our teleworking period about this condition. When we wrote the temporary teleworking policy in March, just prior to our going away from the campus, we added an application for an extension of telework because we were following the numbers. We knew that it had affected so many support structures. Schools were closed, there's no day camps, there's no summer programs, there's no facilities for adult care. There's ongoing concern about people with underlying health conditions. So all of those things have been talked about at length as a part of our planning. We have amended our teleworking policy to include an application to extend your teleworking arrangements. And if we can go to the slide where I can outline to you what to do here, it's already on the screen, what to do if you're not able to return to work. You should go and access the application to extend teleworking. That is on our website. The link is here, but if you have your smart device, you also have the code. So if you'll just click on that code, it will take you directly to the policy and the application. You will complete the application. You can submit that to your manager. And then you will need to meet and have a conversation with your manager to develop, and I'm going to emphasize, mutually agreed upon accommodations that will address both your need and supports the mission of the university. Because our goal is to continue with excellent academic instruction to serve our student base with all of the legacy and history and wonderful things that you get from attending an HBCU. And we have to do that. I'm going to use Dr. French's favorite word, together. We have to do that together. We have to both manage responding to what you need and try to do that in a very creative way around still meeting the mission of the university and serving our students.
All right. Thank you. Dean Torres, this question is for you, sir. How and when will information be communicated to students? Our department is getting a lot of calls and questions from students and parents, so we want to ensure that our messaging is the same as the universities across the board.
Sure. Thank you, Jolene.
Yes,
And I'm sure for many of our faculty and staff who are on the call, you likely all received a ton of emails just today alone as the provost communication went out this morning. So let me prepare everybody accordingly in three particular manners. One, the university and particularly the team that both Ms. Freeman and Mr. Burston run with, our university communications team, is particularly taking the lead and working with all of us under President French's leadership to develop the communication that's going to go out to everybody across the campus community. If I'm not mistaken, Jolene, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be a handbook that is shared with the campus community referred to as CAU moving forward. And that's going to be shared with everyone in the campus community that will give everybody the appropriate details to help both our faculty, our staff, and our students appreciate and understand the detail that we're focusing in on to prepare for the fall 2020 reopening. The second piece is there's also going to be a landing page on the university homepage, and it will specifically reference, again, CAU moving forward. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure we're going to add the tagline that President French is now really focusing in on, together. So it's going to be CAU moving forward together.
That's exactly what it is.
And this landing page is going to have some of the similar information, including a link to this particular handbook that focuses on the fall 2020 reopening plan. And lastly, and I put this out there always, if you need additional support and assistance, or you need additional clarity, email me, call me. If folks do not have my contact information, one, I'd be surprised. I know I'm only getting ready to walk into my third year, but likely everyone should have the Dean of Students' contact information. But I will share studentaffairs@cau.edu, which is the landing email where anybody, students, faculty, or staff, can send an email to, and we will go ahead and review and respond as soon as possible. And President French knows when I say as soon as possible, I'm likely going to be quicker than him responding saying, that's right, Dean Torres. So.
That's right. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean Torres. We will now welcome Associate Vice President of Facilities to discuss the sanitation of classrooms and residence halls. That would be you, Mr. Shelton Anderson, followed by our Chief Deborah Williams, our Chief of Public Safety at Clark Atlanta University.
Good afternoon, CAU faculty and staff. It's a pleasure to be. And I'm Shelton, just as
Mr. Anderson, we're not able to hear you, Mr. Anderson. You are not muted, but your speaker seems to be a little off.
Could you come closer to the speaker possibly?
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Much
Okay,
better.
perfect, thank you. And to that point, having worked for a technology company, I always say that technology is as good as it works.
Right.
But our OITC team keep us leading in technology, so we thank them for the support. But good afternoon, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here. And as Jolene said, I am your AVP for Facilities Management, Project Management, and Planning. And some of you I've had the pleasure to work with, but for those that I have not had the pleasure of meeting with, let me introduce myself. So long before being afforded the opportunity to serve here at CAU, I had the pleasure of serving our country as a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, specifically supporting expeditions to combat terrorism during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. During the height of my service, and while on temporary assignment throughout Japan and Southeast Asia, I was also directly tasked with maintaining operational readiness, oversight, and physical safety of a joint task force consisting of several hundred Marines and sailors during the SARS outbreak of 2002. Much like then, we have conducted countless hours of research. We have gained insights from the leading health professionals. We have communicated and gained insights with several real estate, facilities, and engineering organizations across the country. And additionally, we have joined forces with numerous other colleges and universities within our region more closely with our AUC counterparts, ultimately to collaborate and educate ourselves on the best-in-class approaches necessary to address the challenges COVID-19 brings. But let me be clear, my team and I take safety of our faculty, our staff, our students, and the extended CAU community very seriously. And we have identified several key areas that will undoubtedly aid in our effort to combat COVID-19 upon our reopening. As I know there are many questions surrounding the safe operations on our facilities, I will touch briefly on each of these key areas and provide some context on what our reopening would look like in the coming weeks. So here are the things that you will see when you return to campus. Number one, we are increasing the number of custodial workers within each of our buildings. That's going to ensure that we're able to adequately balance the deeper level of cleaning and the frequency required for sanitizing and disinfecting in the new environments. We will also be increasing the availability and the restocking of hand sanitizer and disinfecting products in every single building. We're also taking measures to increase the level of fresh air, improving the filtration rates that we have of our HVAC systems, and keeping systems running longer to increase the level of clean air that is coming in and out of our buildings. Lastly, we will have adequate signage that will aid us in the following of social distancing guidelines, particularly the wearing of face coverings, hand washing, using sanitizer, and ultimately maintaining at least 6 feet of separation while on campus. The next image that you'll see here are examples of recent cleaning and disinfecting that took place in Trevor Arnett and Thayer Halls. This is reflective of the level of cleaning that will be taking place prior to your return on campus, and more commonly throughout the daytime hours for all the buildings that you will be occupying. Emphasis will be placed on common areas such as restrooms, shared offices, and of course, high-touch surfaces areas throughout every building. Also, thanks to the effort of our AVP of Budgeting and Treasury, as well as our AVP of Business Services and our leadership within Residence Life Team, every staff, faculty, and student returning to campus will be receiving a welcome back kit. As it was said earlier by Ms. Hoyt and as mentioned by the president, this kit will contain key PPE items such as CAU, branded face mask, as well as regular mask as a resupply item, and hand sanitizer for personal use. In addition to the personal kits, there will be a distribution of PPE items, particularly disinfecting items, that will go to each department for distribution to each offices that will be used throughout the academic year. One of the things that we want to do is also talk about how the disinfecting process will occur. So when we think about disinfecting, we have to break it down by what does that actually mean? Disinfecting is certainly separate from cleaning. It is a deeper level by which we're going to be using EPA solutions into these areas. We're going to be going into high touch surfaces and allowing these chemicals to dwell for a certain amount of time and to dry. But more importantly, the way that we clean and the way that we make sure that we get to a lower level of occupancy in our buildings is so that we abide by the A and the B schedule that Ms. Hoyst talked about. So the way this will look is that we will essentially be cleaning in the evening times for all of the facilities that will be used during the daytime. On the Wednesdays of every week, that will of course be served as our day where we have no faculty and no staff that are working on campus, as well as no classes for the students. And that day will be devoted to deep cleaning and disinfecting of all buildings to touch every floor surface, every desk surface, as well as the common areas. To define disinfecting would be just a word. And I'm from the show me state, born and raised in St. Louis. So we always say, we can show you better than we can tell you. With that, we do have a video that we'd like you to see to give you some context on what the disinfecting process will entail. In the video that you're looking at, there is the application of a disinfecting chemical that is being used by an electrostatic spray applicator. This applicator is something that we have purchased for our buildings, as well as the EPA approved collet killing solutions that will be used to mitigate the spread of surfaces and surface to people transmission of COVID-19. Here's an example of recent disinfecting that has taken place also in Haven Warren. So as you can see, part of the process here for disinfecting, again, is deeply penetrating all of our surface areas that we're using throughout the day, throughout the week, and that we're making sure that an EPA grade chemical is applied for a specific amount of time prior to the reoccupancy of all of our staff and faculty that will be coming back on campus. One of the other things that we want to talk about is signage. Signage is going to be an important part of our safety protocols that we'll use in all of our buildings. There's going to be several types of signage within designated areas such as parking, the exterior of buildings, main and sub entry doors that we access. And to kind of give you an example of parking, we will have signs such as the one that you see here to inform drivers that are coming on campus that will be directed by public safety to remain in their vehicles while the temperature check process is being performed. Another example would be entering the main gate. We will have signs that simply outline the CAU and the CDC social distancing and face covering guidelines. And you will also see signage when you enter the building that will basically spell out the number of occupants that we will have on any designated floor, in any designated classroom, in any designated office, as well as any other shared areas. We will also have signage within elevators that will indicate where to stand and that we will have a max occupancy of 2 occupants per elevator at any given time. And we will also be coming through and marking the spaces that have been treated and cleaned and disinfected, along with the dates and times of when the last service was performed. In terms of the workplace, just as Ms. Hoyt said earlier, the main changes is that we're having an A and B schedule, and that really is fundamentally so that we can get to a reduced number of employees on campus any given day. So let me talk about the numbers. By the numbers, we will have less than 300 employees that will be on campus throughout the duration of the week. Of that number, roughly half will be on campus on the Monday, Tuesday. The other half will be on Thursday, Friday. We've gone through and we've identified just by scheduling where all of our employees are physically seated. And when we go into a little bit deeper, the breakdown works out to where we have roughly 15 or so employees in any given building at any given time. If we were to equate that by floor, we then go a little bit lower than that number. And essentially we're going to have about 10 or less employees on any floor at any given time, as we are using the schedule as the main component of making sure that we're not occupying spaces higher than what the levels the CDC is recommending. The exception is going to be for some small select groups and some small select departments, but the vast majority of our administrative buildings, they're really comprised of traditional office spaces. So in terms of population working, each department leveraging this schedule is going to allow us to physically separate so that we have people that are no more than 6 feet within any environment. And in most office environments, we will have doors that are physically separating the reception space from the office suite. And in areas such as in financial aid or other densely populated areas across campus, such as the PAW office, the mailroom, the bookstore, and other auxiliary spaces, we will be installing some form of protective shields, such as plexiglass sneeze guards. So here's an example of a classroom. And using the guidance of the CDC, the classrooms will be greatly reduced in capacity, in general, reducing as much as 33% for most of our lecture halls and all of our classrooms and instructional spaces that we have across campus. In this example, you will notice that this is a classroom located in Carl and Mary Ware, and this is a pre-COVID layout on the left here, basically illustrating that you have 49 seats, all of that of which were in shared desks, and certainly not 6 feet apart. When we go to the new model, what you'll see here on the right is the after effect in applying the CDC social distancing guidelines. So now we have, in addition to physically separating the students and having each student in an individual desk, a form of protective shield that will be installed at each seat, each desk, and also each lecture area for our faculty. And that, of course, will be fluid throughout all of the classrooms that will have a class schedule that we're leveraging for the A and the B schedules each week. Lastly, but importantly, let's take a look at the reconfiguration of the residence halls. In the example on the left, you'll note that each dorm room previously had 2 occupants. So when we apply the CDC rules and we start thinking about density, this certainly created a higher number of students sharing bed spaces and common areas than what would be deemed feasible. On the right, you will see the reduced capacity model as guided by the CDC. And this essentially provides for single occupant rules within the floor area as you see, thereby reducing the number of students that will also share a common area, such as the restroom facilities. This example is nearly identical if we were to apply it to most of the dorms that we're going to be occupying, and specifically for the vast majority of space within 4 out of 5 of our residence halls. Ultimately, this reduces the overall occupancy of all of our dorms by nearly 40% for the 4 out of 5 models, and ultimately reducing all of our space collectively across campus that will be housed. So, we've now talked about the hard work that our team has done in ensuring that our spaces will be clean, safe, sanitized, and that we'll be able to enforce social distancing rules. But let's now turn it over to Chief Williams and her team to talk about what they will be doing to ensure that we're all safe as well. Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Greetings, my CAU family, administrators, faculty, and staff. I am Chief Williams, your Chief of Police. First of all, let me reintroduce myself to some of you all and introduce myself to those that don't know me. I have over 37 years of law enforcement experience, starting with the City of Atlanta Police Department, serving 28 and a half years. After I left the City of Atlanta Police Department, I was asked to go to Mexico City to teach the Mexican law enforcement government our best practices for the United States. After I left Mexico, I was asked again to continue my law enforcement career with the Clayton County K-12 public school system. I stayed there for 4 years until I received my calling to come to serve as your Chief of Police. And I am just as proud today as I was 2 years ago to accept that calling. And as I think about moving forward in these trying times, I'm reminded of Hebrews 10:24-5. Let us consider how we spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. These are trying times, but as our esteemed President Dr. French continued to remind us, together we can do this. Together we can get through this. Your Department of Public Safety is committed to providing the highest level of professional public safety services to foster a safe learning and working environment for Clark Atlanta University, for all of our students, all of our faculty, staff, and visitors. During this trying time, our responsibility to provide those vital public services has not diminished. You've all heard about the checkpoints. You've all have heard about the wearing of the face mask coming as you enter the campus. In addition to wearing the face mask, we've identified 4 designated areas, checkpoints, that we will be utilizing throughout our campus in order for you to proceed to your work site. Those 4 checkpoints are the CAU parking deck, checkpoint B, the President's parking lot, checkpoint C, the pedestrian Henderson Student Center, and checkpoint D, which is the Sage Baycourt parking lot. Checkpoint A, the CAU parking deck. The CAU parking deck is for all of those individuals, all of our faculty and our staff that are parking at Knowles, Stadium, and Epps. And also those that are parking that normally will park at the Morehouse parking deck, you will be required to park at the CAU parking deck because you will no longer be allowed to park in the Morehouse parking deck. And if you're parking on the street, you will also need to proceed to the CAU parking deck to be screened. Staff faculty will enter the parking deck from Mildred Street. You will follow the instructions of the police officer. He will direct you to the temperature checkpoint. Once you get your temperature checked, depending on your temperature, if your temperature is below 100, you will be provided with a sticker, with a color sticker of the day, and you will be able to park and you will be able to enter the campus or your work site. If your temperature is above 100, you will be asked to leave the campus and to contact your manager to receive further direction. The next checkpoint, checkpoint B. Checkpoint B is the President's lot. For those permitted parkers, you would do the same thing. You will enter from the Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard. You will follow the directions of the officer. You will travel to the temperature checkpoint. And again, depending on your temperature, you will either be asked to park or you will be directed out of the parking lot. If your temperature is above 100, you will receive instructions to contact your manager. If your temperature is below 100, you will be issued a colored sticker for the day and will be allowed to park. Checkpoint C. Checkpoint C is for those individuals that utilize MARTA or other ride share to arrive on campus. You will walk in front of the Student Center to get your temperature checked. You will follow the direction of the officer to the checkpoint. And again, depending on the temperature, you will be issued a color sticker if your temperature is below 100. And if your temperature is above 100, you will be asked to leave the campus and contact your manager for further directions. Checkpoint D. Checkpoint D is the Sage Baycourt lot. That lot is only for permitted parkers. If you normally park at the Morehouse lot, you will not be allowed to enter the Morehouse campus. Therefore, you will need to park in our visitors parking deck. For those permitted parkers that receive a permit to park at the Sage Baycourt, you will still enter the Morehouse entrance. You will be screened twice. You will be screened by Morehouse Public Safety, and again, you will be screened at the Baycourt entrance. You will receive the same instructions as the others. If your temperature is below 100, you will receive a color sticker for the day and will be allowed to park. If your temperature is above 100, you will be asked to leave the campus and will receive further instructions to contact your manager. And before you can come on campus, you will need all employees, faculty, and staff. According to your assigned schedule, you will need to proceed through one of the checkpoints before entering the campus. There's 2 access points. Those access points are the Atlanta Student Movement, the main entrance, and the Sage Baycoat. The only employees that will be allowed to go through the Sage Baycoat entrance will be those employees that are allowed to come through Morehouse campus, and those are the permitted parker. So therefore, every other employee for Clark Atlanta University, you all will need to either park in the visitor lot or the president's lot. If you park on the street or any of our other parking lots, you are required to come through one of the checkpoints. Thank you for this opportunity. And remember, wearing a face mask not only protects you, but it protects the other. Again, thank you for this opportunity. And Jolene, back to you.
Thank you so much, Chief. We really appreciate that information. It's very important for everyone to know exactly where they will enter and exit on our campus when we return to campus.
Right, and Jolene,
Yes,
and let me ask Chief. So Chief, you gave a lot of information about a lot of checkpoints, which was vital. Where can my faculty and staff go to get a recap of exactly what you just said?
This information will be provided in the correspondence that the Chief People Office will send out.
Okay.
So we will have this information sent out via email to all of the faculty and staff, so they will have this information as well.
So we'll do email. Ms. Hoyt is going to send it out. And why don't we just do a URL on our website for employees, information for returning to campus, reopening, and just put it there as well?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And we will begin our final segment of questions at this moment, President French. This question will go directly to Chief Williams first, please, followed by Mr. Phillips. So Chief Williams first, Mr. Phillips, and then we'll keep the ball rolling.
Jolene, this is Elon. May I ask you to let me go first, because, so I'll take the answer first, okay? I'll take the question. Go ahead.
Sure. So it reads, in the plans to reopen the campus, how will safety precautions be implemented to protect faculty, staff, and students, i.e. checking temperatures of every individual that enters campus facilities, hand sanitizing stations, constant and rigorous cleaning facilities, mask wearing requirements, etc.? And how frequent will there be cleaning and disinfection of the premises?
Okay, well, thank you, Jolene.
Yes, sir.
Let me begin by saying it has truly been a whirlwind, but an honor chairing the Crisis Management Center Steering Committee. As several of my colleagues have alluded to, we are truly a 24/7 team in operation. There is no time that is sacred for us not to get on a Zoom call or send a text or an email, but this has been so important to us, and all of us are committed to it. I would hope that everyone by now sees that the university takes the safety and well-being of all faculty, staff, students very seriously. And I trust that you have heard a lot of detail up until this point from various people that answered many, if not all, of the questions posed in this particular question. So what I would like to do, quite frankly, is maybe to summarily recap all of the things that we are going to do and that we have put in place to do. And let me begin again by reemphasizing that everyone will be tested for COVID-19 upon reopening. And what we had not previously mentioned, but I want to mention now, that COVID-19 testing will also apply to our outsourced vendors who come on our campus every day, such as Follett, Sodexo, and CNW. Okay, as far as we're concerned, they are no different than our employees. We care for them, they interact with us, and we want to make certain that upon reopening that they are negative, and they also will participate in the sample throughout the academic year. The other thing you've heard us talk about is the screening we're going to do, and the screening will include the required wearing of face masks in public spaces and the temperature checks that will take place. And as a part to enable that, both students and employees will receive a kit, a safety kit, when they come back. And the kit will contain 3 face masks, hand sanitizers, and in the case of students, it will include a reusable thermometer. You've heard Shelton talk a lot about the low density spacing that we're doing in res halls, offices, dining, and other auxiliary service areas in classrooms. And included in that will be shields in numerous places to protect students, faculty, and staff. We also will designate, as Dean Torres said, isolation quarantine space in our res halls to accommodate what we hope not to happen, but should it happen, COVID-19 infected students who are living in the residence halls, if it's necessary. We will also, as Mr. Anderson said, do regular, frequent cleaning and sanitizing of our facilities. And we will also have, as our Chief People Officer, Deborah Hoyt said, special accommodations for both students, faculty, and staff who have underlying conditions that are negative to COVID-19, and for people who are 65 and over, if they request it. So in summary, we're doing, and then you also heard the chief talk about the designated screening locations for the temperature checking. We are very serious about health and safety and trying to protect everyone. But I also want to indicate that, and we cannot underemphasize, this is a shared responsibility throughout the campus. Students, faculty, staff, visitors, outsourced vendor, employees working on our campus. We cannot do this without everyone following CDC guidelines, following university policies, making certain that they wear their face masks. That's the hot thing that they're talking about right now. Number one, you must wear your face mask. And we also should emphasize, and I don't think we previously said it, that we're asking for no more than 2 people to ride in elevators. So that's an opportunity. Well, here in Harkness Hall, where I am right now, I get my exercise every day because I have to walk up steps. But for those who have the opportunity to catch an elevator, please do not get on elevators where there are more than 2 people in those elevators, because we need to have the physical distancing. So in summary, I think we have answered many of these questions. We are going to do this together. I know we can be successful, and we will certainly keep each and every one of you informed along the way. Jolene?
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Phillips. I appreciate it. So I see one of these questions, I believe we've answered that one already. It talks about shields being installed at desks with colleagues. I know we're going to have that done. I want to ask this question. Will staff be restricted to use any shared items or spaces? That's next question. Mr. Phillips, can you answer that? Followed by Mr. Anderson, this question for you. Will the ventilation system in the Thomas Cole building be upgraded to ensure a healthy, breathable, safe environment? So those 2 questions quickly.
Well, with regards to will they be restricted from using shared items, I would say that everyone should keep their physical distancing. And if you are in fact using an item that others would be perhaps prone to use, such as a copier or something like that, that's why we're giving you hand sanitizers to use.
Right. Mr. Anderson, the other question?
Yeah, sure. No, that's actually a really good question, Jolene. And the short answer is yes. Our Title III office has done an outstanding job in working with our department in securing federal funding for the renovation of several labs and the HVA and control systems within the Thomas Cohen Biology buildings. Our engineers have actually worked tirelessly over the last several months in conducting analysis of the systems, and we are already selecting a contractor that will be performing the required upgrades over the summertime. So yeah, the answer is yes. And of course, upon completing that work, we'll be conducting air quality testing as routine with any renovation project prior to occupants going back into that building.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've approached the end of our town hall discussion. I would like to thank all of you, all of our panelists. Give yourselves a round of applause for participating today. You've answered lots of very important questions and provided some very valuable information. At this time, we're going to have our president, the esteemed President George T. French Jr., to come forward to give us closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Jolene, and thank you for the panelists and to the over 400 attendees of faculty and staff that took the time to come and have the conversation. Very much like what Deborah Hoyt, Chief People Officer, noted earlier, we would prefer to have this conversation in person. I would prefer to have the conversation in person. As a matter of fact, I recall when I first arrived on campus in September, and I met with the faculty assembly leadership, and they asked me, well, when would we want to meet with you. And if we can meet within the next month or so, it will be great. We know your time is stressed right through here. And I said, yes, my time is stressed, but not within the next month. I said, let's meet on Thursday. Today is Monday. Let's meet on Thursday, because I wanted to meet with you all. And I looked forward to meeting with my faculty as well as my staff. And these are challenging times. Let's be very clear about that. And Clark Atlanta University, we pulled together a team that is compassionate, that is emphatic to the needs of the people. And even when you look at other institutions, as soon as this pandemic hit, we had institutions similarly situated that had layoffs and furloughs right away. And we just didn't run and meeting, and I'm glad that it was mentioned, that Eli mentioned earlier, Lance. We have a CFO extraordinaire as well as a COO. And when I met with them, we did not just want to run and simply cut and do furloughs and lay off faculty and staff. Now, ceteris paribus, all things being equal, we understand that COVID may change and we may have to make cuts in the future. But Clark Atlanta University, we have been committed to not making cuts, to not doing furloughs, to try to keep the team motivated and make hard decisions at the same time. So to be very frank with you, as adults, as academicians, as top shelf academicians, we have difficult decisions to make. And as my Dean of Students, Dean Torres, intimated, our students, all of them are not going to be happy. Now, some of the parents are going to say to administration, that's a good idea that we de-densify and we don't bring everybody back to campus. But the students are not necessarily going to be happy. The students at Spelman are not going to be happy. The students at Morehouse, they're bringing back at Morehouse 20% of their population. Spelman is doing something very similar to what we're doing. No one is going to be happy. So leadership is not for the faint at heart. And we get that. It's not for the faint at heart. So everyone is not going to be happy, but we have to make some hard decisions, colleagues, because Dr. Bowles would tell you at the beginning of this pandemic, when we decided to postpone commencement, postpone, not cancel commencement. When we decided to do that and I postponed inauguration, everybody didn't understand. And unfortunately, there's misinformation that occurs within our community, such that at the beginning of this pandemic, we had folks running around saying African Americans could not catch it. Now, on this end, we're seeing the result of misinformation. At the beginning of the pandemic, the misinformation is that young people were immune. And now we see the spikes because they were symptomatic later in their contagion than others were. But we see how symptomatic that they are now. So young people, their rates are spiking, which is our exact population. So we had to make some tough decisions. We made those decisions with scientific data, informed by the CDC, informed by the World Health Organization, even informed by Morehouse School of Medicine. We had to make those decisions, and we made decisions based on the health and safety of our faculty, staff, and students. And I would ask, and I'm appealing to you as your president, as to my faculty and staff, help me with this. Because while a preponderance of the conversation has been the protection of the students, it also has to be the protection of the faculty member who may be more at risk in that classroom. It may be the preponderance of deciding that the staff members in these offices who may be older may be more at risk. So I have to make those hard decisions to protect not just my students, but my faculty and my staff. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what my team is committed to doing. And I really want to thank you for taking time, for being part of a conversation that I wish we were having on campus. But at the end of the day, I always give thanks to God, because who knows what this pandemic would look like if we didn't have the technology of Zoom. Had this happened 20 years ago and we're just trying to all get on the telephone, it's not the same and it wouldn't work. But we have the technology, and Clark Atlanta University, I'm looking for us to get even more technology. I'm looking forward to us becoming the leaders in epidemiology and viral research, and taking this thing to the next level as far as research and helping the higher education community. So I want to close, Jolene, by thanking my colleagues for their hard work, for your prayers. And I close by asking you to pray for those within our community, those whom we know have been affected, and then everyone on this call, 400 people on this call, you all have family members, neighbors that have been affected by this horrible, horrible virus. I'm going to ask you to look in on your family members, look in on your neighbors. Take care. Let's take care of one another, and we will get through this together. Thank you, Jolene.
President French, on behalf of all of our colleagues on the call, all of the panelists and myself, sir, I'd like to thank you for your outstanding leadership during this challenging time. So, colleagues, I like to just give President French a round of applause, because this is definitely a tough job. It is not easy to do, and it is tough to make those types of decisions, but we are glad that you're here and that you are doing so, sir. I also want to encourage everyone to support our One Exceptional University. Support Clark Atlanta University with your time, your talent, and your funds. And with that, I am going to toss it to the Sam Burston.
Thank you, Jolene. What a wealth of information we have received today. Give yourselves a huge round of applause, and I can hear the applause virtually. Thank you to our moderator, Jolene Butts-Freeman, and President French. Thank you, the hardest working HBCU president I know. Thank you for your insight, your compassion, and for your leadership. Thanks to our favorite provost, Dr. Dorcas Bowles. Hello, Dr. Bowles. And thanks to the panelists for sharing your expertise and information regarding the fall 2020 reopening. What a wealth of talent we have representing the Clark Atlanta University. And as we move CAU forward together, moving CAU forward together. Please continue to be vigilant, be safe by following all CDC COVID-19 guidelines, and have a fantastic 4th of July weekend. We will now ask Reverend Dr. Miles to return for the sending forth. Reverend Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Burston. Brothers and sisters, clearly we are in good hands. Good hands in the leadership of our president. Good hands in the leadership of, good hands with our leadership team. And good hands with God. We can do this because God has got us. But as President French just said, we have to continue to pray. We have to hold one another up together. And so as we prepare to go forward, I invite you to join with me in prayer, that we would also think about those who have been impacted by this COVID-19 virus and everything that has happened in the wake of it. Let us pray together. Gracious and loving God, as we gather this afternoon to hear, we give you thanks. As we look ahead, we give you thanks. As we hope for the future, we give you thanks. Help us to remember that we go on this journey together. Help us to remember that in the times when we are in the midst of our work and it doesn't seem like things are as they used to be, help us to be open-minded. Help us to open our hearts. Help us to be gracious with one another. As we look from our left to our right and we see one another struggling in the midst of this new environment, help us to be cheerleaders, to lift one another up and to encourage one another along the way. Help us to remember to be patient. Help us not be perfect, but to always seek to do better, to awaken each day, to strive to do in a more excellent way. We thank you that you have been there with us since 1865, in 1869, in 1988, and even today. And so we ask that you would continue to move us forward, reminding us that our faith matters, not only for ourselves, but also for one another. For President French and this leadership team, continue to be their strength and their guide, that they might lead us for this academic year that is upon us. We give you thanks. And we ask that you would remind us of the ministry that you have called us to, and that you would stir up the gifts, that your work might be done for glory and for good. It's in your holy, righteous, and matchless name that we pray. Amen and amen.